This video is sponsored by Corvus Belli. Hey guys, Jay here. Welcome to Models Memories Weekly, episode 176. Models Memories is a show about nothing and is filmed in front of a live studio audience. This is a show where we talk about my painting, modeling, and working experiences from the week. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Jay, you put out 3 videos a week. Meow. Could I possibly have more to say? Well, I do, and here goes. This week, Games Workshop dropped Blood Angels on us out of the clear blue sky, and I want to show you guys the absolute rabbit hole I went down on a new game called Infinity. Embrace the red thirst in a new Blood Angels Codex and Army set. Blood Angels out of nowhere are now back on the scene with 2 new miniatures. Twice as many as the Sisters of Battle or the Genestealer cult or most other factions in the game have gotten so far. But they're pretty darn cool. Lam Martis is back. Lam Martis is a beautiful miniature. I think it was a Juan Diaz sculpt from back in the day. A really nice miniature. And the new model, I also like the new model quite a bit. The old model was a little bit stoic, which was really cool looking, but almost doesn't work for Lam Martis. So Blood Angels, they have a gene flaw called the Red Rage, where so as a Blood Angel ages, they start to get a little bit more unhinged and a little bit more unhinged until they see every single thing, every person, every entity as Horus striking down their Primarch Sanguinius, and they can do nothing but just rage charge and violently chop whatever they're looking at. And so that happened to Lam Martis, but he can somehow stay reasonably focused and self-aware enough to be a Blood Angel's chaplain. Who knows if he'll ever snap and just go fully berserk, but right now he's keeping it together, and the new model does have some changes from the old model. I like everything about the new model. I really like the way that his chest and like the armor on his legs kind of look like they're constricting him. They almost look like the bars of a cage. And I think that's a really nice touch. I think the only thing I don't really like about him is his skull shoulder pad. The older sculpt had a really nice skull shoulder pad where every inch of that shoulder pad was skull, where the new one, it's just one little peekaboo skull sticking out the side of it. It's fine. I would probably swap that out for something else, but other than that, I really like this guy. I like his sculpted base. His jump pack looks awesome. I love his iron halo. Oh, he's even got like the armor, like the nailed down cage bars over his jump pack too. He is really nice. And then we got Asterath. Asterath is a real weird character. So his thing is when a Blood Angel goes crazy with the Red Rage, he, like once they've thrown him at orcs and he's taken out every single orc and everything imaginable, this guy comes along and is like, all right, we're done with you now, and then just executes him. And so kind of a macabre job, but someone needs to do it, and Asterath is the guy to do it. And he is, I don't want to say he's bad. I like this model a lot. I like the wings on the jump pack. I like the weird, like, skinless look of his power armor. I think it just shows, like, the limitations of Space Marines a little bit, because he looks like an action figure, especially because his shoulder pads are upside down with his pose. It just looks a little bit wrong. I also kind of miss on the old model, he had tons and tons of purity seals and scrolls that were actually holding the model up as he's jumping through the air. I think that was a really nice touch and helped kind of fill in the gaps of like, does this sculpt make any sense? Just having a little bit of that kind of magicalness to the sculpt was really nice, where this guy, he's just jumping off of a tactical rock. It's a fancy tactical rock, but it is kind of just a tactical rock. I would like to see, I think if those details were in the model, it would hide some of the other crimes. But because he's kind of naked, especially he's super naked because he almost looks like he doesn't have skin, it's just a little bit more easy to tell that something isn't quite right. His shoulders look weird, but he is still really cool. I am super jealous of the Blood Angels because I'm a Black Templar player. I am a close combat Space Marine player, but the Blood Angels, they're so good. They're so wickedly good in close combat. With their army ability, they get +1 strength and +1 attack on the charge. It might be +2 strength and +1 attack on the charge for all charging units. That is wickedly good. It also takes every like mediocre Space Marine combat unit, like Assault Intercessors and Jump Pack Assault Intercessors, and it makes them really, really good. Blade Guard Veteran get ridiculous, but if you're a Black Templar player like me, you don't really get any of that. All of those units are still mediocre. We get Sword Brethren, and so, a squad of Sword Brethren attached to Grimaldus or Helbrecht is super good, can kill almost anything in the game, but without any other super hard-hitting close combat units, my Black Templar army kind of has to be a couple of strategically awesome combat monstrosities backed up by vehicles and the rest of a Space Marine army. Or the Blood Angels, they can go hard on close combat. They can rip and tear. Oh, I'm so jealous. And I can't even run my Black Templar as Blood Angels because then I couldn't take my Black Templar named characters. I'd have to leave Helbrecht at home if I wanted to play them as Blood Angels. And speaking of playing them as Blood Angels, they now have their own upgrade frame, which comes with a lot of lovely bits, although I think they missed a trick. You get an Inferno pistol, that's really nice, because a lot of stuff can take Inferno pistols, and does Games Workshop sell a kit that comes with an Inferno pistol? I know Sisters of Battle have a couple, but I can't think of a single Space Marine kit where you can get an Inferno pistol. Maybe the old Vanguard Veteran kit, but I think Games Workshop made a mistake with the Furioso Dreadnought. The Brutalis Dreadnought is now going to be the Furioso Dreadnought. Excellent choice, I love everything about it, but the one really cool thing about the Furioso Dreadnought was the skull-shaped, like the skull-headed coffin. They could have put that bit in the upgrade frame. Like, that would have absolutely been the cherry on top of the Furioso Dreadnoughts. But instead, you just paint it the Blood Angels colors and call it Furioso Dreadnought. There's nothing super unique to the Blood Angels. I think if they just, even though that bit doesn't do anything, like Black Templar got some, like we got the Tannheiser's Bones bit. That doesn't do anything, but you can put it on your guys and be like, that's Tannheiser's Bones. I think it would have been really cool if there was a skull-headed coffin door that you could put on your Brutalis Dreadnought to turn it into a proper Furioso Dreadnought. But other than that, it looks super cool. Their battle force, it doesn't feel particularly Blood Angels-y. It just comes with a bunch of Assault Intercessors with jump packs, and then some Assault Intercessors, the Brutalis Dreadnought, which is technically a Furioso Dreadnought, and the new named characters. I sort of get it. Games Workshop wants to move away from the old squatty Space Marine kits, but that's what a lot of the older Blood Angel stuff is. I worry a little bit that this means that the Sanguinary Guard aren't going to get an upgrade. I love the Sanguinary Guard, but they almost look like cherubs, like especially next to the new Primera Space Marines. They just, next to beautiful new Dante. Dante is an immaculate, beautiful Primera Space Marine, backed up by some of the smallest little golden boys you've ever seen. I really wish that Sanguinary Guard would get a little something something. And it's not impossible. Like, okay, perfect world here. Sanguinary Guard are gonna come in the next couple of weeks. Beautiful new Primaris kits, and they're gonna come in the Blood Angels Combat Patrol box. I've said it, it definitely won't happen, but that would be perfect. Oh, and also throw Dante in there too. That would be really, really cool. But speaking of really, really cool, one game that I've always had my eye on is the game Infinity by Corvus Belli, a super cool kind of anime cyberpunk inspired war game that's like 20 years old. It's not a new war game, but it's all out of the corner of my eye. I've always looked at it. Every time I see an Infinity model, I can instantly tell that's an Infinity model. That's really, really cool. And I don't know what this game is. I don't know how to play it. I don't know how to collect it. And so I spent the better part of 2 weeks figuring out everything about Infinity, deep diving into the lore, looking at every single miniature in the model range, becoming a very basic Infinity expert. I got the apps. I'm set up to go for Tabletop Simulator. I just need to find an opponent. But Infinity is a ridiculously cool war game. Infinity is actually set in our universe 175 years in the future. It's not quite a dystopia. It's not a utopia either. It's kind of just normal, like the world exists, everyone's doing their own stuff, and there is conflict. And in the world of Infinity, it's a skirmish-based war game with about 15 miniatures per side, up to 15 miniatures per side. And so war isn't fought with gigantic armies anymore. It's just a couple of operatives doing some operative stuff. And it's really, really interesting. And it has some of the most beautiful miniatures I have ever seen in miniature wargaming. One thing that helped me to understand Infinity is just kind of knowing the lingo and what I am looking at. Infinity miniatures are broken, I guess, into like 5 categories. There's infantry, medium infantry, and heavy infantry, and then there's tags. Tactical armored gear. If you've ever seen a model and thought that looks really, really cool, it's probably a tag. Everything from like mech suits to just gigantic robots and kind of everything in between. The tags are really, really cool. And then there's remotes, little teddy bear-like characters who increase the ability of some of your hackers and your medics to be able to do their things. These little teddy bear robots can take the place of one of your more expensive and better guys, and they can do the same thing. So they just increase the range of those special characters. Then in terms of Infinity's factions, it's very much like another game called Malifaux, where you have your faction, and then within that faction is a bunch of sub-factions that all are based on the primary faction, but they have their own unique eccentricities about them. And not the main faction, but probably the poster boy faction would be Oceania. This is the most numerous, like, if you live in the world of Infinity, you're probably a member of Oceania. They're right now, they run the show, they run the boat, they have everything, and as long as they can continue to expand forever, everything for their society is gonna be just fine. Some of their coolest miniatures are the Night Hospitallers. These guys, I mean, they're the Black Templar. That immediately was my first thought when I looked at these guys, but super high-tech, punky knights in space. I mean, who doesn't want to see a guy in a beautiful suit of medieval armor holding an LMG? It just makes me smile. Then we've got some really cool remotes in the drone bots. These guys, they're not quite a tag, but they're a little bit bigger than your typical teddy bear remote. These guys are little, kind of cute, little buggy drones that can shoot missiles, fire machine guns. They can do whatever you need them to do. And the idea of these little buggy robots running alongside the medieval style knights is really, really fun. And speaking of something running alongside medieval style knights, the Tic Balong, a giant mech suit. A giant mech suit with a samurai sword and a machine gun. The tags are so cool in Infinity, and the tags are usually very faction specific. A lot of Infinity models are just a guy, like a soldier guy in different types of armor and different types of war gear, but very, very unmistakably a soldier. But then the tags are where like you really get the juice and the drama of each different faction. And I really like the Tic Balong. He is large, he is in charge, he's got incredible amounts of armor. He looks like he can really move. Like, this guy can boogie. He's got some actually believable joints. I mean, compare that to the Brutalis Dreadnought we looked at earlier. The Brutalis Dreadnought, could not believably move, but this guy, he can get down. But speaking of getting down, the Jing. These guys have a chip on their shoulder because they used to be the most powerful force in the world. But then they were leapfrogged by Oceania, and so they are incredibly committed to getting back on track. They have been working furiously to increase the capabilities of their technology, and they kind of succeeded. They might have the best tech, but it doesn't really matter because Oceania has more numbers. So they'll always be number 2 in every race, but they're working hard. Getting into Jing's coolest kits, they have medium and heavy infantry on lock. Their war gear, just the look of their armor is so intense and so cool and so like high tech compared to everybody else's faction. I mean, there's some other high tech factions, but these guys, their gear is super cool. The Wu Ming is like their baseline. They have some light infantry, but their baseline trooper is like cooler than Iron Man. And then it only goes up from there. The Yapu Pangolin is their remote. And I don't know if you guys noticed it by looking at it, but kind of looks a little bit suspiciously like the bugs from Starship Troopers, and I love it. They're so organic and insect-like, but also they've just got big cannons sticking out the front of them. I think their head is a flamethrower. Like, these guys are super, super cool. Almost as cool as the Zhu Young. kind of the antithesis of their heavy elite infantry. This guy is a big ol' mech suit. Actually, he's kind of a little mech suit with gigantic shoulder guns. I really like, he has Iron Man arms that are holding like joysticks for his big shoulder cannons. Like he could punch somebody to death with the joystick if he didn't feel like actually shooting them with his gigantic cannons. I really like, I'm a Space Marine player. I love the idea of heavy infantry, and these guys for sure do heavy infantry the best. Oceania and Jing are probably the two biggest human factions in Infinity, or like regular Earthling factions in Infinity. One other one is Ariadna. These guys are the descendants from humanity's first foray into intergalactic travel, and you might think because they're interstellar that they would be the most advanced tech of any of the factions, but actually it's the lowest. It turns out roughing it as a frontiersman in intergalactic space doesn't give you a lot of free time for improving your technology, so they're pretty much 21st century humans. But that actually comes in handy sometimes. They're very well regarded by the other factions in Infinity because they have new frontiers to new lands for everybody to take part in. And your giant Iron Man suit can't get hacked if you're not wearing a giant Iron Man suit. The Ariadna grunts are your classic soldiers. Well, classic soldiers with a little bit of extra technology and a lot of creatures. There's werewolves, but there's also wolf wares. There's like man wolves, but there's also wolf mans. They're in between a human and a wolf. It's a very interesting faction with a lot of really, really fun stuff, but it's basically a whole bunch of grunts, a couple of mech suits, and some of the biggest models in the game. The Blackjacks might be one of my favorite tag style units. They don't have the clean, smooth lines of the other factions. These guys are big slabs of armor and metal with a very modern looking LMG. Oh, and a revolver. His gigantic Iron Man hand is holding a revolver. And speaking of iconic, this is the faction that can take the Mirage 5, which is a werewolf man and his helper/assassin friend. And if you look closely at these miniatures, you might notice it's a little bit of a big bad wolf and Little Red Riding Hood situation going on. These miniatures, if you have ever heard of Infinity, you've probably seen these miniatures, and they are a part of the Ariadna faction. Next up is Lam, an incredibly dedicated group of scientists, philosophers, and doctors who risked it all on one ideology: the pursuit of knowledge for the betterment of mankind. Now you might think that this incredibly naive ideology wouldn't last long in a sci-fi setting, but it's actually working out pretty darn good. They have a monopoly on the best medical technology in the world, and they have essentially cured death, which is a very in-demand product, so that helps them eke out a living in the world of Infinity. In terms of their model range, they have a lot of lightly armored infantry, and they have a lot of like non-combat style infantry that can do a lot of special abilities like stealth and planting mines. But then they have some cool stuff like the Bashi Bazooks, who are jump infantry, also fairly lightly armored, but can show up anywhere on the board. But really, all of this pales in comparison to, in my opinion, the coolest model in the range of Infinity, the Magriba Guard. Also referred to as Maggie, this thing is like a 2-pound lump of metal. It is a giant, chunky scorpion mech. Oh, this thing is absolutely gorgeous. I am gonna get one probably as soon as this video is over. Oh, it's so cool. It's so cool. This thing is literally a weapon. If you chuck this at somebody, you would hurt them badly. Is such a cool miniature for Lam. But speaking of cool, the Nomads are the next faction, and they are a group of mad scientists, criminals, anarchists, religious zealots, renegades, furries, libertarians, basically everybody who doesn't fit into normal society. They're all stuck living together on 3 giant spaceships off of Earth. And you might think that this gaggle of outcasts wouldn't work well together, but they actually get along pretty harmoniously. And because they're not on Earth, they have access to some of the weirdest technology, and all of their units are all about power. Their Mobile Brigada wear incredibly form-fitting, super high-tech, anime-inspired armor that, the red with the black, it looks so good together. And even though they're kind of like, they're not bad guys. I wouldn't say that they're good guys either. They're kind of their own thing. And speaking of doing their own thing, I really like their remotes. their little spider mech missile launcher guys. I love all of the little robot guys, and these guys are some of my favorites. But speaking of some of my favorites, they have the Salamandra Squadron. This guy has the biggest gun in Infinity. It might be one of the biggest guns in wargaming. But man, that like multi-barreled railgun held in like a chainsaw grip by a giant mech suit with a tail is absolutely fantastic. And a fun note that a friend of mine told me about this kit is the other gun that's just attached to his back right now, the flamethrower, that is interchangeable. So you get to pick which one is attached to his back and which one is attached to the front of his gun. It is an incredibly cool kit. It is the biggest gun in the game, and it is part of the Nomad faction. But speaking of Nomads, the next faction is Combined Army. You might think that this is a combining of all of the different factions in Infinity, but no, it's aliens. Combined Army is a melting pot of a bunch of different alien factions that are all working towards enlightenment. And their version of enlightenment is subjugating the entire galaxy. Not great for humanity, but it is really fun in Infinity because they have access to weapons and armor that nobody else gets. The Nox Troopers are incredibly weird looking aliens who still kind of look pretty high-tech and punky. Like they've got extra, like these weird long legs that are double jointed. They're a little bit chicken legs, but I love the long legs with these kind of little bodies and then their long rifles. They're very, very alien. And speaking of very, very alien, the Combined Army Support Pack shows off another alien race that has been subjugated by the army, and they're little sluggy dudes. I really like them. They're really weird looking. They're obviously meant to look a little bit like cobras, but they look like Nurgle cobras. Like they have multiple eyes. They're in between a worm, in between a lizard, in between an insect. They're very gross looking. And speaking of gross, the Combined Army has the most powerful model in the game, the Avatar. This guy is gonna take up at least a third of your 15-man slot in your army, but he is the final boss of Infinity. He is gigantic, enormous, unstoppable, and really I don't know if he's made of worms or he's just, those are his muscles, or maybe that's all just like cyber technology, but he is an absolute monstrosity. Now the Combined Army is bad news bears for the humans in Infinity, but the next faction is the only one keeping them in check, and that is Aleph. Aleph is the AI that humans created to run their society, and it did a great job. However, society grew so big and so enormous, and the threat of the Combined Army was so great that the AI took it upon itself to create like next level humans by making copies of itself and then pairing that with willing subjects who now are like super beings. They're essentially supermen. And all the other humans were not necessarily cool with the AI taking these liberties, but nobody's willing to argue because it's kind of the only thing keeping the lights on. The Aleph post-humans might just look like regular old dudes, but they're actually incredibly powerful. They're very hard to hit. And if you do hit them, they have lots of wounds to keep them alive because they're essentially the perfect melding of technology and humanity. The Dakini Takbots are the next step up, with actual robots that use the Aleph's AI to tell them where to go. And the Garuda Takbots are my kind of robots. I like how spindly and weird they are. Their proportions aren't quite human, and I think that not quite humanness is what makes them really interesting to look at, because your brain is like, that ain't right, but I kinda dig it. The Aleph faction is kind of the one running the show, but the one that's making sure that everything runs smoothly is O12, essentially the 175-year evolution of the United Nations. These guys are somewhat the peacekeepers in the universe, and they're basically the space cops. The gangbuster hacker with his remotes. Also, just imagine that you're a criminal, and then you get taken down by one of these little remotes, one of these little teddy bears with like boxing gloves. Like you couldn't show your face in the prison after that, but these guys are very Judge Dredd. They are the cops in space. They are ready to lay down the law. And speaking of laying down the law, the Roadbots Highway Patrol is a cop, but it is also a motorcycle, not to be confused with a motorcycle cop. This is 2 in 1. This is a motorcycle that becomes a cop when necessary. And Team Sirius. What's a cop without a loyal canine companion? And this canine is very odd. It's very gorilla-like, but I do like that it looks correct. Like, it looks like it was a well-engineered robot that was designed to look this way. It just happens to be kind of monstrous. Like, what kind of, I guess there's some big bads. Like, imagine if you need to arrest a tag. Like, what do you do if you need to take down a giant Gundam? You use this little doggo. Those are all of the factions in Infinity, and I have just barely scratched the surface. These are literally, I just showed you all of my favorite miniatures. But let me know in the comments below, like, if you've ever looked at Infinity or you just saw the factions as I showed them to you, which one is your favorite? Because I think for me, I'm leaning heavy into Nomads and occastional, but I would love to know what you guys think. And if any of you want to give Infinity a try, they have a 2-player starter set called Operation Blackwind, which comes with a starter factions for occastional and Aleph. I actually have a copy of Operation Blackwind, and so I'm working on getting those miniatures all put together, and maybe sometime soon, maybe Monday, you'll get to see a little bit of Infinity get painted. Infinity is a war game that I am really excited to get into, but just like any war game, it needs a little bit of terrain. And speaking of terrain, have you ever heard of our Patreon? For the month of August, subscribers to our Patreon will receive the Clone Expansion, a part 2 to our spaceship interior, with new wall sections for building out the grisly facilities of a cloning laboratory, complete with examination/autopsy tables, cloning bays, and new doors. And the cloning doesn't stop there. The cloning towers are macabre monoliths drooping with pods full of fresh recruits or test subjects, depending on the needs of the mad scientists who operate them. I had a really fun week learning all about the game Infinity. A big thanks to Corvus Belly for sponsoring this episode and for creating such a cool war game. I gotta get back to painting, maybe painting some Infinity, so thanks for watching.